and welcome to eBay.ie Online Fashion Week. I'm Darren Kennedy and we are here live in the Gallery of Photography in Dublin's Temple Bar. Now tonight is the second in our series of fashion chats with some of Ireland's brightest talents. Tonight we're discussing the business of fashion, really how having an online presence can really help your business and reach out to a global audience. If you are joining us from the comfort of your own home or office or wherever it may be via live stream, do join the conversation. We want to hear from you, we want your questions, and that's very easy to do. All you have to do is tweet us using the hashtag eBayOFW, and we'll answer as many of them as we can. Now, I want to introduce you to my guests this evening. We've got the very lovely Natalie B Coleman, who's an Irish designer, very talented lady, and Andrea Byrne, who's a freelance journalist, and might I say, quite an avid eBay user as well. We'll be finding out a bit more about that. So, Andrea, starting with you. You are quite the woman. Tell me about your eBay adventures.
I suppose they started about 14 months ago. I kind of went through 10 years of kind of overzealous shopping where my wardrobe was bulging with things with shopping tags on them and whatever else, rather than giving them to the charity shop. Sorry. Oh, and the scrap heap, my mum suggested I use eBay, so she kind of did all the donkey work and I kind of wrote the kind of flowery little descriptions and all the rest, but she looked after all the correspondence between various different buyers. And
that's the dream, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like you had like a PA.
Oh, exactly. That's it. She even took the pictures, the digital, and I kind of, styled them, but she uploaded them and all that kind of stuff. So,
what were you selling? Was it good stuff?
It varied. It really did. Like, it went everything from kind of pennies to Reese to... I found the labels that did really well were your Karen Millens, your Reese, your Topshops, your Kate Moss for Topshops. I did really well out of designers for H&M, so Victor and Rolf for H&M, those kind of things that sold out really quickly in the shops. So yeah, over the last 14 months I've made about €1,500. So
not bad.
Happy days, yeah.
Now,
so,
I probably shouldn't ask this, but I am. Who buys penny stuff on eBay?
Yeah, you'd be surprised. Like, it would be, I suppose. You see, the thing about pennies is there is a quick turnaround and they don't tend to repeat stuff. So if someone saw something and they didn't have their size, they're prepared to. Now, as I said, it would be the mid-market brands, the Karen Millens, Reese's, that would have done better. But I have sold penny stuff, yeah.
Right, and quite aside from your eBay addiction,
yeah.
Tell us about your career to date.
I studied a degree in journalism in DIT. I studied it with Irish because I thought it would give me more opportunities going into the workplace. All through college, all I ever really wanted to do was fashion. And I don't know about anyone else who's ever done journalism, but you're deterred from getting involved in fashion. You're told by the Irish Times, by the Financial Times, but the pages I were going to were invariably the fashion pages. So got very lucky. Angus Fanning, the editor of the Sunday Independent, encouraged us all to write some pieces because he said that you'd be surprised. You would think that loads of graduates are inundating them with requests for publication and for work experience and all the rest, but he said he never got them. So a few of us sent stuff in, a few of us were kept on, and I was there for 6 years writing mainly fashion but lifestyle features. And yeah, I left there in November, which sounds really stupid to leave a permanent pensionable job, but I was 26 at the time, footloose, fancy free, no children, no massive financial commitments, and I thought if I don't do it now, I'll never do it. So went freelance in November and have been continuing to write for the Sunday Independent as well as the Weekend Magazine and the Irish Indo, RT Guide, and a few other publications.
So you're keeping busy?
Keeping busy, and I blog occasionally as well when things are a little bit quiet, but obviously have to prioritise paid jobs. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I think the interesting thing for tonight's conversation is you're on the other side of
Yes.
the business. So, in terms of what Natalie would be doing to try and get her product out, to as big an audience
Sure.
as possible, you're receiving that content. So that's something
Absolutely.
we'll have a look at as we go on this evening.
Yeah.
Now, Natalie,
Okay.
hello, welcome. A trek to get here this evening. London via Shannon to Dublin.
Yeah, Kavanagh's bus.
There you go. Did you get a free ride?
No.
No, okay. Now, talk to us about your career. I mean, obviously, some people will be familiar with your brand, others maybe not so much. So take us right back. How did you become a designer?
I studied in Limerick But before that, I had a little label with a girl down in Cork called Lucky Bitches, and we were taking clothes, like recycling them, that kind of thing, and revamping them. So that's how I started getting into it. And then went to Limerick, and then went to St. Martin's for my MA. Then didn't really do a whole lot for a year, kind of. Well, I did. I worked for 3 Years 4 in New York, and I worked for a textile designer, but didn't start my own thing for over a year. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but started back in Monaghan making a collection, and then went to put it on Not Just a Label, which is an online, really good kind of place for people. Stylists look it up a lot, and designers and shops, and it's good to have your work up there. And
How would you describe your designs?
fabulous.
Of course, yeah. Well, you know, for anyone who's unfamiliar with your work, what type of clothing do you
Well, but this was from, I like to tell stories behind all my clothes. So my first one's called Damaged Goods. My love affairs kind of inspire me a lot, or the disaster.
I like the sound of this, right?
No, but it's kind of tongue-in-cheek, but I like very nice finishings and very nice fabrics. Everything is kind of hand-drawn, illustrated, so all the prints are unique to the label. And this was all the jewellery I never got, which was from all the men that I went out with for quite a while. And
many were there?
The Adele of the fashion world.
Yes, exactly.
You should use that one. You see, I knew this was going to breed results. You know, you've got your little PR guru here now.
But yeah, just tongue-in-cheek and flirty, feminine. And my autumn winter is called I Love Me. So it's like one collection for kind of every girl, because there's like, sometimes you want to dress goth, and sometimes punk, and sometimes romantic, and you know, so I tried to
A little bit of
mix
everything
it up.
in there. So, Natalie, you have an online platform where you sell your wares
Yeah.
to the world.
On my website. It just started about 5 months ago. So yeah, it's been doing well. I got like an order for, like quite a big order from Saudi Arabia 2 weeks ago, which was really nice.
And what's a big order?
Well, like a few pieces, but
Right. And why Saudi Arabia? Do you know who the person? Do you have any idea who this person is?
no, but I'm selling to 2 shops in Dubai. So I'm going to be, I think I'm featured in Harper's Bazaar in Arabia. So I think then she saw that and then went to the site, so that was good.
Yeah.
But I mean, Andrea, from your point of view,
Yeah.
how, you know, as a fashion business, right, whatever that may be, how do you ensure you stand out from the crowd?
It's kind of elusive, but I think you really need to have attitude. I don't know if Natalie would agree, but there's such a
I don't know if Natalie has any.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But there's such a saturation of brands and designers and whatever else that I really think you need to have a specific identity and know exactly what that is and know exactly who you're catering for. Because, like I said, you could just fall away to the wayside if you yourself don't know what you are and who you're catering for. So, what else? In terms of getting exposure, you really have to be proactive. Like self-publicist can have negative connotations, but you really need to be a self-publicist without being pushy. But, you know, write down a list of every editor in the country, contact them. Like, I just know from working in the paper, Constance Harris, who's speaking tomorrow, I think, she'd be delighted when people would contact her, delighted to find new talent. And yeah, just plug away and, you know, take, in terms of like the practicalities of it all, buy a really good digital camera, take good clean product shots, because designers starting out, like, they don't have the budgets for PR and whatever else. So if a clean background, send in clean product shots. Magazines need to fill with content. They're only dying for this kind of stuff, you know. Tell them a story. Yeah, just get out there and sell yourself.
Is this kind of advice resonating with you? Is this, you know, part of the journey for you in your business?
Yeah, no, I think it's really good to have a kind of strong idea. Like, it takes a while to get a brand identity, something like that, but just have something that you're very confident about, you know, for who you're aiming it towards. Mm-hmm. And it's nice to always have something personal, I think.
Sure.
The interesting thing is that, like, there was a time where, you know, most Irish design talent had to leave the country because really there wasn't a big enough market here, or they just struggled and there wasn't the appetite for what they were doing, if it was anyway a little bit outside the box. Has, you know, the evolution of online retailing, I mean, you were telling us just before we came on that your studio is on a farm Up in Monaghan, is it?
Yeah, it's not even our farm. It's just looking on.
It's just a random farm.
It's not my cows or somebody else's.
But do you think before, like, if, 15 years ago, if you didn't have an online space, would you be still up there doing what you do? Or would you have had to leave?
Yeah, I'd say so. But it's doing shows abroad as well. Yeah, everything on the internet, on Facebook and Twitter, and putting up all your new press, everything else. Like, otherwise nobody knows what you're doing,
You're just up there.
Yeah, you're just up there.
On your own.
One thing
With
I
the
would say
cows.
as well, a lot of people might disagree with me and it might seem like a bit of a sellout, but if I was a designer, I'd be all for this celebrity endorsement. I would be sending out little gifts to Irish models, and people might think this is really crass, but I would, because you see it on Twitter all the time and you think, what a clever person, they sent Rosanna Davison, little thing, a little bracelet, and she's put a picture of a Twitter. You cannot underestimate it, so I'd be all for that. Absolutely.
We've actually a question just come in there using the hashtag eBay OFW if you have any questions. It's Mia Oliver. Any tips on good keywords to use in eBay listings to get them noticed? Andrea, I think that's for you.
Yeah, in the subject line, I would give, you see, when they're doing a search, they're going to search black Reese dress or Natalie Coleman top or something like that. So be very, very explicit in the thing. I put in the size, like they give you various different options the whole way down, but in the subject line, I put in as much information as possible. I put in the colour, the size, the style, the brand, good pictures facing the right way up, again on a clean white background. If you do have the time, I would advise you to shoot it on yourself. Be very honest, be incredibly honest, because it will pay off ultimately. So if there is the slightest scuff in your shoes, the slightest thread missing in a dress, declare it, because if you're caught out on it, it's just going to be sent straight back. So honesty is the best policy when it comes to selling on eBay. I learned that the hard way, by the way.
Did you?
Yeah, I got a few returns. Just it wasn't me being in any way dishonest. I just didn't realise that you had to go to such lengths to declare absolutely every imperfection, however small. So, yeah, I'm trying to think what else in terms of
Keywords. So just be honest and very descriptive, I would imagine.
Yeah, and good pictures.
Imagery. It's all about the images.
Definitely, yeah, and don't overstate your postage as well, because that can be a massive turn off. So there's various different sites online where you can calculate postage. So
is there?
Yeah.
I always wondered how people calculated postage.
Yeah.
I'm like, how do you know how much it's going to cost to send that? You don't even know where I live.
And register it if it's worth, I'd say, over €15, because I had one incident before. It was a Matthew Williamson for H&M stud. It was a fabulous bag, and anyway, I don't know why I chose to sell it. But, the lady bought it. I hadn't registered it. Because I hadn't registered it, I had no comeback. So even though I'm 99% sure that it arrived, because I put a return address, so if it didn't arrive to her, it would have come back to me. But because I hadn't registered, I had no comeback, so she probably has the bag, and
her money?
I didn't get money, yeah. So
that's not on.
Yeah.
Now, let's bring it back to actually building your business and building a brand. I mean, I think if you're new to all this, it can be very overwhelming. Even the phrase building a brand, I mean, what exactly does that mean, and how do you go about it? Natalie B Coleman.
I don't know. I'm still figuring it out. Well, I think, as I said, it's getting to know who you're selling to and having something that is very much your own, which I do with the illustrations and with certain fabric finishes and the cut. And I like to have a little story, like I'm doing gorgeous little swing tags that go with the other ones, with just the background of the kind of memories of where all these ideas came from. So I think that's nice, and then it becomes when somebody sees it and they go, that's a Natalie B Coleman, or that's, little features that are repeated, not each time that you do something completely different, but you have a consistency that.
Would you communicate with your customers? Do you think that's important?
Yeah, do you know what? I got the gorgeous, like when this came out, all the jewellery I never got, and it was being wrote about in the papers first, and I was telling the story about how no man had ever bought me jewellery, and that I'd inherited all my mum's jewellery. It's like, it was just taking the mickey of it or whatever. So I got all these women writing in with their own stories about how they'd gone out with a man for maybe 10 years, da-da-da. Do you know, it was really nice.
Yeah.
It's Sex and the City stuff,
Yeah, a
isn't it?
little bit, that kind of, in the country.
What was the breakthrough for you though, when you kind of went from designing, hoping someone was going to buy them and that someone was going to pick up on them, to actually feeling you've actually established now your brand?
Well, still getting there, but I kind of think sometimes naivety a little bit, and you just go first and kind
I don't buy that.
It's true. Like the first show I went to, I sold it, so that was good. Not a whole lot, but enough to get my first shop, and then from that I got invited to another store, and if you have good energy, I think.
Good energy. Do you think that's enough,
Do
Andrea?
you use
Good
social
energy?
networking, Natalie?
Yeah.
Find it, because I often think with designers nowadays, it's a massive help, isn't it, to be able to access, almost your very own focus group of customers and talk to them directly without having to organise a big kind of soiree or get together and stuff like that. And I just know from even some of the best boutiques in the country, I think they use Facebook, post uploading pictures, and once they've gotten an incredible following, it's like they have their very own magazine where they're just pumping them full of pictures of new stuff that are coming in. And I often just think it is a little bit easier for designers. You might totally disagree. It's from
I think
me
it
looking
is good.
looking
The
in.
engaging aspect.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
Pinterest. And
the
someone was saying last night at
exactly, yeah.
Pinterest.
The access people have to customers nowadays is just extraordinary. It really, really is.
I
What
only
social
got
media?
the internet at Christmas.
Sorry.
Sorry.
You only got the internet.
Got the internet.
And I was just about
that-
to ask what social media do you use? What
I was
social media do you use?
outside the local hotel, stealing their internet at night, trying to send stuff off.
But hold on, you've an online shop. How did that work?
My fiance is a graphic designer, so he kind of helped me out with sorting myself out.
But you literally had to go
Internet-wise.
down to a hotel every night to see what orders had been placed, or
Well, it only has all happened. I had the website, but I didn't have the internet at home. Sorry.
right. And so, are you now engaged
Now
with
I'm
social media?
obsessed. I love social media. But even Marina and the Diamonds was here, I don't know, a month ago in the late, and she saw some of my dresses and tweeted about it. So from that, now she's borrowed 6 pieces for her European tour.
Would you not buy
It's
them?
nice. Well, we'll see. Well, maybe.
And have you? I kind of get the sense from you, Natalie, that you have just been that you haven't actually. You don't sit down at the start of every year and kind of go, right, my online marketing plan, my offline marketing plan. Do you need to be that organised?
I think the more organised you are, the better, for definite. But I'm trying. I'm getting better. It's just that there's so much to do as a designer once you start your own business. You're, as a lot of you know, but you're doing your pattern cutting, you're designing, your production, everything. So.
And we're all guilty of that, aren't we? We kind of stick to
Yeah.
what we enjoy the most, and presumably as a designer, you enjoy, making clothes, designing clothes the most. Andrea, in your experience, is that something that you found designers can sometimes let themselves down on? They have a great creative mind, but not having that business mind.
Sure, no, yeah, you'd get emails off young student designers, and they'd have no sense of the publication they were pitching towards, so they'd suggest meeting you, and you're only delighted to meet people, but at least do the editor or the journalist the courtesy of knowing that you're writing for that publication, because you'd get something very generic. I find generic emails just such a turn off, and we're humans and we make judgments based on first impressions. So I know design is
No, I think it's
so important, but
to do that and to
a
have the
day a
person's
week, an
name.
hour a week, just write very personal emails. Like I said, they will be receptive to them. So it's definitely worthwhile just getting your head together, and because once you've met these people, you've a relationship at that point. So it gets an awful lot easier, So. But yeah.
How important is that kind of face-to-face relationship with, fashion journalists, fashion editors, bloggers? Because we're so much lost in this social space that sometimes we're so far removed, you kind of forget that relationship building element.
So important. You can't put enough emphasis on it. It's I know I met so many wonderful designers in the years, and I would have interviewed them, and second time I've interviewed would have got them to know better, and then suddenly, when there's an opportunity for an interview, you're automatically going to go to the people who were a great interviewee the last time, or are really accessible, and they're good talkers, and you can't help but editors and journalists, they're subject to quite tight deadlines, so they do sometimes the easy way out isn't the right word, but you know, they will go to the people where they know they're going to get something good off. So it's important to definitely forge relationships. And like I said, they'll be very receptive to it. I don't know anyone in Ireland, but even beyond Ireland, like the way social media has gone, like Anna Wintour is a bad example, but there's Grazia editors that are so accessible. The Glamour magazine, I see her replying to people, to young designers on Twitter and stuff like that. Like that's the wonderful thing about it, is no one's inaccessible anymore, you know. So no excuses.
They can find you everywhere.
No excuses.
Another question on Twitter. Should young designers get on a global platform such as eBay to spread the word of your label? Or can you live without it? Can you live without the internet? I know you did up until Christmas, but as a young designer, can you live without having an online platform?
No, I think you definitely need it. Definitely.
Have you seen a difference, like a dramatic difference in terms of sales versus, you know, in-store sales and online? I mean, what's the most important business for you now, important side?
Well, because I've only just recently started with my own store, but I'm also selling on a few other online stores as well. So, yeah, no, people, even me, I wouldn't have bought before, you know, but I do now online for shoes and things like, and bags, things like that.
As I look down.
Yeah. So, no, I think it's very important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do we have any questions on the floor? Yes.
Do you think there's enough opportunities for like fashion girls that are neither like journalists or designers? Do you think there's like enough opportunities in Ireland, or do you think you have to go elsewhere?
So are there enough opportunities in Ireland for young designers, stylists, writers in the fashion industry?
I would like to think so. Certainly I haven't heard of any magazine publications closing down. I've seen, you know, the hashtag job fairy. I've seen Image magazine looking for people. I've seen Farmers Journal do a woman's supplement. I saw them looking for someone to edit their style supplement. No, I wouldn't think so. Like if you see the amount of, and Darren, you know, the amount of working stylists who are busy, like there's a good few of you, and you're very, very busy, like, and the thing about Ireland is everyone's really good to one another. There's no sense of, I have a friend who works over in England, and stories she tells me, it's not the same family unit. And I know, like, if you couldn't do a job, you'd advise them to go to Angela or to another stylist. Like, it's a much nicer place to work. Yes, it would be wonderful if you wanted to go over to London and get some experience, but you will be making tea for 2 years, whereas in Ireland you're going to be given opportunities much, much quicker. That's the experience that I've certainly found.
Where are you coming from? What area are you interested in?
Well, I do a course in Newcastle in Northumbria University called Fashion Communication, and it's all that kind of stuff, like doing photography, PR, management, journalism, and it's just seeing, because it's UK based, it's all about the UK, doing like graduate fashion week and stuff, and then going, like being here, and I'm doing an internship at the moment with a designer, and it's just seeing, like, because I haven't really looked at the Irish side of things properly, looking at kind of what jobs there would be.
The fact that you're in the UK, in college in the UK, you might be fast-tracked slightly quicker than someone coming over straight from Dublin. Your university lectures would have contacts in certain areas and whatever else. So it might be worthwhile pursuing it over there, because, like I said, they'd have good contacts and whatever else.
How about from a design perspective, Natalie? What would your advice be to a young designer starting out?
I think it's great to spread your wings and go to other places, definitely. The population is small here, you know, it's 5 million if you're, from selling point of view. It's 60, like it's very easy to get coverage here, and as you said, it's a very nice networking, everything else, but I think it's nice to go and then come back, you know.
Where would you go? Or where have you been?
Where have I been? I've been to lots of places. I'm a bit of a gypsy. I like traveling. But yeah, no, I think it's good to get that experience and go off, because, you know, it's more challenging probably. And then, but it's lovely being in Ireland as well, especially now, because you do get to travel and you do get to showcase abroad, and you do have all these different, you know, online presences to push your whatever you're doing out there. So it's not such a necessity to be in London or New York.
Well, it's that whole thing of the global village, isn't it? So, I mean, if you can just get yourself in, it doesn't really matter where you're based as long as you're producing the goods, be it, you know, actually making clothes and as a brand and selling them, or if your product is writing or blogging or whatever it is. I think once you can get, you know, stuck into it wherever you are, you'll be grand.
Absolutely.
We have another question coming in here on Twitter, hashtag eBay.OFW. Where do you think the new eco-fashion movement lies within the business of fashion? And that's from Carrie-Anne Moran.
I think it's hugely important. I think it's all moving towards that, to like having your clothes eco-produced.
And is it something you're conscious of, and do you?
Well, the last collection I used 80% of the fabrics came from the pulp of a tree. They were all organically dyed, everything else.
Really?
Yeah, but it's not, I don't know a whole huge amount by it, but I just know from going to the different trade shows now that everything is moving towards that. And even the huge companies are not because of economics, but because, well, not because of, it's because of economics, not because they care so much, but.
Well, Burberry recently employed an Irish lady, didn't they, to be their head of eco-warrior stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so
I
it's
find
great.
that the fashion industry are certainly trying to push it, and rightly so. It's a wonderful movement. But I certainly, from talking to friends, they don't say to me, "Oh, is it fair trade organic cotton?"
It'll take.
Yeah, I think it'll take a good long time. I think our generation are still fast fashion, and I don't think they're quite ethically minded. I think.
Isn't Eden, Ali
Yeah.
Houston's company is Eden, they're very eco,
See,
and
the
People
problem with
Tree, and
ethical
it's
as well.
expensive, isn't
It is very, very expensive. So
It's an Irish designer, Sharon Wackerby.
Yeah,
that works
in Paris.
with her.
Yeah.
So when you say it comes from the pulp of a tree, where does the pulp come from?
I don't know.
You see, that's the thing. I kind of have an issue with the whole eco
I just
thing.
bought
I'm
the
like,
beautiful fabric.
Yeah, you
but
kind of
it's
wonder.
all certified, and there's lots of paper with it. So
And it's got
it
20,000
had the right
air
stamp.
miles.
No, it
Yeah.
didn't.
Oh, you see, that's
No, it
interesting.
didn't.
Okay, so that's an interesting side of things. Right, have we another question from the floor? Yes.
Natalie, what attracts you to an online marketer? Is it what everybody talks about? Is it fees? What would be the
So we're assuming that you're definitely going for an online platform, but what differentiates one platform from another? So what are you looking for? Bearing in mind, Natalie only went online at Christmas, but what differentiates one retail platform from another?
Well, it depends on what your brand is and your price points. You know, some would
For you.
suit you better. Well, I liked for Ireland. I like Style Tonic because it's moving towards just having Irish designers. I like Carnet de Mode because it's good for kind of all of Europe, and it's a good standard. Shows the products really well, and then they work with a lot of magazines as well, so you get press out of it. So I'd look for things like that, I think.
You know what's great about and I don't know too much about eBay as a business platform, but just I obviously know just from a personal point of view. But
You've got a lot of experience
yeah,
in it.
no, but it strikes me if I was a designer, I'd certainly entertain the idea of selling on it, because it's certainly a lot cheaper than going through any other fashion avenues. I know boutiques are wonderful, whatever, but it is an awful lot cheaper to sell on eBay. There's free listings on all the time and whatever else. Like I said, I don't know how it works for a business, but I'd imagine it's not that different.
Well, I guess
you
the
know?
thing is, if you're just starting out and you're making your designs and you don't have the money, or you aren't at the stage where you can build your own platform
Sure.
that represents your brand. I mean,
Yeah.
I would always say, if you're not quite able to do it the way you want it, hold off and wait until you can do it. So that's why I think
Sure.
eBay Boutiques offers
Yeah.
the platform that's readily available.
Or even if you're just out of college, recent graduate, and you're not too sure whether you are good enough to make it as a designer, selling some of your clothes on eBay and seeing how receptive people are to them would be a good idea as well. You know, just a validation of sorts. If they sold well, there you go. You could potentially make it, you know.
That brings me on to a question by Fitzy. Would you recommend putting a reserve price on my pieces on eBay, and how do you put a value on clothes you've designed? That's an interesting question.
Yeah, definitely
So-
put a reserve.
Yeah, but like, as
Absolutely.
in, if it's something you've created from scratch, this is your design, this is your product, how do you value it?
I suppose it's very personal, really, isn't it? I suppose you take into account the material that was used, the time and effort, how in love you are with the piece, because by the sounds of it, he doesn't really want to sell what he's just made. Various different factors would, but material, you know, time. all that
What
kind
would
of
you
thing.
think, Natalie?
The same, you just count up your hours, and well, it depends. You can spend a huge amount of time on something if it's just a one-off piece.
How do you decide your
what would he
markup?
pay
How do you
for
decide
it?
your markup, I guess?
Well, there's specific markups, like guideline things.
Is there? So
Yeah.
where would someone find them if they're in that situation?
Well, it depends. Some people double and some people don't. Depends on what you're going
It's quite
for.
a markup, isn't it? 50%.
Boutiques are 3.
But you see, you're
Right.
taking well, not all of them, but you're taking your time, all the work with the factory, everything else out of that, plus the hours and the patterns, and, there's not that much.
So really, it just depends on what value you place on your product
You have to
and
ask
where you
him
want to
how
pitch
much
yourself.
he'd pay for his own. What would he pay for?
Okay,
Yeah.
so you calculate what it cost you, the hours put into actually designing, creating, manufacturing, etc., and then whatever markup you feel happy with. And I guess a big thing is your positioning as well. I mean, everyone has to have an idea of where they're coming from with their brand. If they're going to be a luxury brand, if they're going to be a high street brand, and that's going to affect your markup as well.
Absolutely.
Another question actually for Natalie by Classic Colour. How did you get started with sales to stores and approaching buyers with your first collection?
Through trade shows, through the one in Berlin, and then I got invited to Gallery in Copenhagen, and then Mittelmode in Amsterdam.
Are they all on invitation, or can you
No,
can
I
you
was
approach
lucky that they sponsored me kind of showing there, so I got to figure out and kind of have a try at them without having to put huge expense. So that was
And I
good.
often find at these shows, do they haggle? Like, do they really try and get you down on or
No.
are they pro designer? Are they pro business? If that makes any sense, Are
well,
they?
it's not public. It's not open to public. It's
Yeah.
just buyers, so they know.
Sure.
No, maybe the Italians might try and get 5% off.
So your first port of call needs to be getting into a trade show.
Trade shows, yeah.
So you've got a captive audience
But
of
you
people
can
hoping to buy.
also go around with your suitcase, make phone calls and turn up and make appointments with boutiques,
Did you
I've
do
done
that?
that, yeah. I went on the bus again around Ireland with my suitcase.
I'm thinking of a book here. You've got the jewellery, you've got the bus, you've got the suitcase.
Absolutely,
You've got a
yeah.
great story there. And do you find that boutiques are actually receptive?
No, they weren't really.
So you need
maybe
to,
you
you
might
need to
have
have a
better
profile,
luck.
do you
Well,
in order to?
I
kind
think
of-
a little bit, but I think I'm doing that in London. But once you kind of have more of a portfolio, press and everything else, and stores, you can kind of call up and make an appointment. And they'll only make an appointment if they want to see you. So
And do
Well,
they
that's
want
fair
a
enough.
website as a
If they're
reference
interested
point?
by
Sorry, Natalie. Do they want a reference as a website as a reference point? Do they prefer it or
you have to have a website.
Do you? So basically you can't live without having a website, whatever about your retail element.
Yeah, pretty much.
But I guess if you're going to have the website, you might as well sell it.
Yeah,
Does it cost that much extra to have a retail platform?
no.
So
No,
to
it's
set
good.
up e-commerce isn't that expensive?
No, not at all.
Interesting.
It depends on which you go with. I'm with Big Cartel, which is good and easy to use.
Big cartel.
And are people really concerned about safety on websites? Because I often wonder that. With new websites,
Yeah.
do you get questions asking you how secure this is for
No.
credit card
It's
payment?
PayPal,
People
is it?
are.
It's probably
I don't
PayPal.
do, yeah,
Okay.
I do
Yeah,
PayPal.
PayPal.
Okay,
I haven't
right.
done credit card. I
Yeah.
probably would be a bit nervous about doing
Yeah.
that.
Well, I think that's
I
the
don't
thing with
understand.
eBay
Yeah.
and PayPal, it actually makes it so accessible. And actually,
Yeah.
I very proudly made my first purchase on eBay on Sunday.
Yay.
And I set up I think I made one years ago, but I can't really remember. But I bought a couple of pieces actually. I kind of got sucked into the whole thing.
And did you enjoy it?
Oh, did I what? I was like, my friend called over to go for lunch. I'm like, just give me 5 minutes, just give me 5 minutes. An hour later, and I'm like, I bought this.
thing.
No, they've yet to
Yeah.
arrive, but it's great, and it is secure. You set up your PayPal account. Well,
Oh,
from my
absolutely.
experience, it seems very secure.
absolutely.
Who here shops on eBay? Anyone wearing something now that they bought on eBay? Is that Tim Ryan?
Yeah.
Fabulous, isn't
So
it?
did you?
It was Amory O'Connor was selling it from iBlack Fashion.
Was she? That's so
And you knew
Anne-Marie,
it was
actually.
her, did you?
Yeah, she had like iBlack Fashion as her name. So
Oh wow,
me
okay.
and my sister were like, she lives in Dubai, and the time was really awkward, so she was watching it and I was watching it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Fant-
so-
and did you get? You don't need to tell me price,
No,
but
it
did
was
you get a good
really-
price?
Yeah, really good value. Like
Fantastic.
knowing how much
Yeah,
Yeah.
would pay
yeah,
for, like,
retail.
on brand fashions,
Yeah,
yeah.
of course.
Anne-Marie, if you're
Fabulous.
watching, mark it up.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the feedback here. And any other questions then for Andrea or Natalie?
Actually, from speaking from like as in terms of business as an actual business, I know you mentioned before, markups and positioning, like they are essentially quite technical terms. Now, I guess for a young designer, do you think, would you advise them to kind of go the college route? Or do you think, I'm not sure what your background is, not like, I don't know if you did say you went to St. Martin's, didn't you? But I don't know, do you think that would be beneficial for students to actually go through a kind of business or fashion course?
Yeah, probably. It would help, yeah. But you can, I think doing placements is really good as well, because then you can kind of, you know, as everybody says, make your mistakes in somebody else's time, almost, which is allowed when you're working for somebody, like interning. So, yeah, I did a little small business course, like a 2-month one. But I think if you can do one specific to fashion, a short, small one, then yeah, it would help.
That actually ties in with another question on Twitter. Again, hashtags eBay OFW if you want to join the conversation and ask your questions. We have, do you think you need to study fashion design to be a fashion designer?
Not at all, why would you? Yeah, I think so. Sorry, I think so.
But I think it's a valid question because many a designer has been very successful without having studied it.
Yeah, well, I mean, you would study to some degree. Even if you didn't go to college and get your degree, you go and work for somebody, you know, and build your way up that way.
Would you get internships if you didn't have a college qualification? You would.
Yeah, I think
just
so.
need a portfolio.
Well, I was doing a pattern cutting course, but the waiting list was too long. I was going to do that in Dublin for a year and then go to London and intern. But it was 8 months, so I decided to apply for Limerick instead.
Sure.
So I was open to doing it either way.
So you'd recommend it one way or the other?
Yeah, yeah.
And actually that's quite interesting, Andrea. I mean, you know, I've met people who have gone into journalism or PR, but actually what they really want to do and what they do in their spare time is design clothes, and you know, they harbour ambitions to be a designer. Is that something that would be beneficial? I mean, like we were saying earlier on.
Course,
yeah,
or,
like it's well, or even
absolutely.
just try and get in with a paper.
Yeah, absolutely. I haven't come across it too often, but yeah.
Jewellery
why not?
designer from the Indo, who I'm sure you know.
Really?
Yes, and she went off to India and made all her jewellery.
Wow,
and she was like a production coordinator. She did the layout of a magazine. So just, I guess, you know, you can come from any aspect.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, nothing's ever wasted. I firmly believe that. Yeah, and everything will be beneficial in whatever you do. So yeah, no, by all means.
Do you get from time to time designers who literally it's day one, they've designed something and they don't know where to start and they email you going, Andrea, help?
No, but I'd be happy to advise them if that's the case. I suppose it is incredibly daunting, but they have, any designers I've spoke to, they always have, seemingly from any graduate or design college that graduates that I've spoken to from NCAD or Griffith or LSAD or anything like that, they seem to have great relationships with their tutors who they can still bounce ideas off afterwards and whatever else. So if any advice, hold on to their numbers because you're going to want to ring them. They'd be able to advise you a lot better than I would in terms of the technicalities of it all. So,
and that's the thing. How important is it to have and cultivate and build a network when you're in business?
It's really important, I think. Yeah. Well, I have some friends from college, and they're all kind of the same, you know, doing something similar. And like I just spent the weekend chatting with one of them in London who's doing great, but we really bounce off each other and help each other out. I think it's good. And pass on stylists and journalists and, you know, even my intern that was there, you know, given him a list of people, you know, for him to contact, things like that. So people do help each other out.
Would you be conscious of kind of cultivating relationships with the likes of Andrea who can, you know, potentially write about your latest designs? Or is it a one-off? I mean, I think sometimes people kind of go, I was told to contact journalists, hi, there, I've done it, now I'm just going to wait and see what happens.
Expect miracles, yeah.
You know, would you suggest, you know, let's go for coffee, can I meet you, can I have 2 minutes of your time? Or if someone gives you a nice reply, to follow up,
Yeah.
I mean...
Well, you can send it newsletters
Yeah,
and things like that,
say,
you know,
yeah.
with little updates. And then if the person wants to contact you, you know, you have all your information there. So
Sure.
they can kind of follow up
Yeah,
with you.
and make your email visual. Send them don't send them high resolution imagery, as you well
clog
know.
up their email box.
Yeah,
they'll
you're going to
like
be
it.
blacklisted for life. Low resolution imagery. So when you're introducing yourself, at least they can have a reference point.
Okay, we'll take another one from Twitter. This is an interesting one. It's from Mozgal82. And she says, first time store trying to establish how can I get luxury brands on board to buy into my concept without having established myself? So like so this person's opened their store for the first time and they really want to attract, you know, high-end brands, but yet don't maybe have the history.
The shows, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it's about the shows, but probably they might need to be a bit more real. Look, I think it's good to aim high always, but you can, you know, maybe get small local people that are doing one-offs, or, you know, maybe approach those first rather than, you have to build up contacts. You can't just...
Are they online?
Just
or
want
are they,
Galliano.
Yeah.
It's not a big ask.
Is it online or is it
It's it actually
standalone store?
They didn't specify. Let us know if it's an online store or a standalone. I get the sense from it, it is a boutique, so an actual store. So hopefully that person will also have an online element to it as well.
I would advise them to be careful because you're going up against Brian Thomas, Harvey Nichols. You know, that's another thing. You really need to know who your competitors are as well. You know, like these are big multinational companies, so they can buy in massive. Brian Thomas, Harvey Nichols, or House of Fraser can buy in massive numbers. If you're a boutique, you're buying 5-6 items, so your markup's going to be higher than Brian Thomas and Harvey Nichols. And how do you compete? So be careful on that one.
Have you ever thought about going into the actual retail side of fashion business?
Terrible business. Like I said, only for my mother, I would be a bad eBay seller. So yeah, no, not great at all. Definitely not.
Okay, another question coming in on Twitter again, the hashtag eBayOFW. What would be your top 3 tips for starting out as a designer? I reckon that's to you, Natalie.
Oh God, to do good research for whatever shows you want to go and show in, to get good contact list. And I don't know, it depends because everybody's different. If you're making one-off pieces, it's totally different to trying to get production and sampling done, you know. So I suppose it's just about knowing where you're going and who you're aiming towards and being quite structured.
But it's still actually, it's quite funny because the 2 things that you mentioned there are what we've been discussing. It's networking and getting out to the trade. I mean, if you're trying to sell clothes, they're the 2 things that you can't avoid. You have to do
How many
them.
internships would you advise
To do?
Yeah, before you go out on your own.
Well, you can do them all through college as well, and then
Sure.
afterwards, I think it's good to get some paid work somewhere.
Okay.
In
In an assistant designer role or something at a higher level, is it?
Yeah, junior designer,
Okay.
and see what happens. Like maybe for a few years, I think it's
Yeah.
good, and to get some money behind as well, because it's not easy financially starting out.
The thing about it is, though, you can kind of test the waters, like doing what you did, Andrea, and selling your own kind of used items and see
Sure.
how you get on.
Absolutely, yeah. Did you ever consider markets, actual physical markets, you know, not obviously online markets, but Cows Lane and places like that?
They weren't really for me, but I used to have a vintage stand over in Edinburgh years ago, so I had a little bit of experience of markets of selling, but not from my own product.
Yeah.
Andrea, a question for you. When you sold things on eBay, did it make a difference if you packaged it up nicely and sent it swiftly?
I'd always send straight away. That would be out of courtesy because you did click a little box to say dispatch. So I didn't really want to be annoying people by keeping that box unticked. So would send
It's
it
all about
straight
box
away.
ticking.
Packaging, no, I wasn't great now. Once things were secure, but
You see, I'd pay more for it if it was nicely packed.
Really?
Yeah.
No, I'm
it's all
not
about the
Net-a-Porter.
packaging for me.
You know, I sold something warehouse dress today, and I actually have it in the boot of my car, and it's in a warehouse bag with sellotape wrapped all up, wrapped all over it. So no, I can't imagine the person's going to get very excited when they see the bag, but they'll be happy with the contents, and that's all that matters for me. You know.
Have you actually just discovered there's kind of an average time from the point of actually posting an item for sale to it being bought? I mean, I know you can set your deadline, but do you find that
How do you mean? So when they buy the item, how
like
long?
so if you this dress that you're selling today,
When
so
they'll get
when did you post it up on eBay as an item for
Oh,
sale?
sorry. I post things on an auction. I never do buy it now.
Oh,
I
do you
always
not?
do auction. Yeah. It seems to generate more revenue. It sounds like a business now.
I love it. I don't really know what I'm doing,
Business.
but it generates more revenue.
I have the lingo all the
Yeah.
same. 7 days seems to work best, and I post it on a Sunday because I kind of TV's crap and people are kind of on the computer more. Whereas on a
Post office
Saturday,
open on a Sunday?
no, we post it Monday morning then.
Okay.
Yeah, no, the auction would finish. I usually late night, put it up late night on a Sunday, so it finishes 7 days later. You can also do a 10-day listing, but I tend to do 7. And yeah, because I find that, I think there was a statistic that I read that it's the highest volume of users at any given time during the week is a Sunday evening. So there's a little
The
tidbit.
weekend's over, school is back the
Yeah,
next morning, you're
people are like,
bored.
ugh, I'm going to treat myself. It's a Sunday night. I'm hungover. Let's go. Yeah.
Natalie, question for you on Twitter. Who is the most inspiring designer for you?
I like a lot, actually. I love V&A, from early V&A, and I like Celine at the moment a lot, and Lanvin and Marc Jacobs for the kind of humour. I like a lot.
How about you, Andrea?
Lanvin as well. I like Celine. I like Chanel. I like.
I'd never guessed by that bracelet.
I know all kind of ridiculously expensive brands. I like Hermes. In terms of middle market, I love Maj. I love Sandro. It's not middle market, slightly above BT2 kind of level. I love Topps. I love some high streets. I like French Connection. Yeah, a real mix
you're open.
now. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
Interesting question, actually, and one I never considered before. Setting up your own label, is it expensive?
Yes.
So what makes it expensive? Because you kind of go, right, I'm going to call it this. And then you get a graphic designer on board. What else have you to do?
Well, before you start selling and before you go into production and go to the shows and have a VAT number to start dealing, because you need a VAT number to start dealing with businesses to sell to you. You're paying full whack for all your fabrics, which is so expensive. Like I think it's 400% in Soho that they increased the price of. If you go, I don't know if any of your students, but if you go to Soho for your silks, it's up 400%.
Soho, London, 400%.
Yeah. So like if you're paying, those kind of prices, you can't really sell, because I don't know. So that's why it's good to have a job first, because then you get to know wholesalers and you can get around things that way. So and you just know a bit more of what you're doing.
Do you have to patent your brand?
That, yeah.
Well, in what way?
Like to trademark the name?
Yeah, my name is, but I got someone to do that for me. So
Basically get someone to do it for you.
Yeah.
Very easy.
Yeah.
I got someone to do it for me. Between the two of you, you're gas.
Yeah.
Your mother's sending off your
I
eBay
know.
packages and you've got someone else to trademark.
Princesses, the pair of us.
I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Let's have another question from Twitter. 7 Day Studio asks, what are your top tips for increasing sales and traffic to a store? So obviously an online store.
probably what you were saying about celebrity endorsement as well. That's good.
Pictures on Facebook, pictures on Twitter with links.
Yeah.
Newsletters. Blog. Do you blog?
No.
Would you be tempted to blog within the website?
Yeah, no, that's one thing I'm meaning to do
Yeah.
soon.
To blog.
Yeah, just about, because I'm traveling so much, just little things that kind of create more of the story behind
Make
the
sure
label.
if you do have any sort of press commitments that you ensure that they put their ask them. There's no skin off their nose to put your website at the end. It really isn't.
That's a
They're
really
quite
good
happy
point.
to,
Yeah.
So if whether it be a small little question and answers thing, again, put it at the bottom.
And I think
Don't
imagery
just
as
be a
well.
name, yeah, just
always
be a
have
website,
to
yeah.
name your images very clearly what you want it to be. So
Yeah.
if you're selling on your website, credit it to your website, because
Sure.
obviously you want people to be able to find your product.
Yeah.
Do we have any more questions from the floor? Yes.
Hi, Andrea, just from
Yeah.
a writing perspective.
Sure.
Like for your inspiration, if you sit down and write a blog for
Yeah.
freelance or whatever, do you get your inspiration from other blogs, from latest collections? What would inspire you to kind of write your
Yeah,
pieces?
it's a good question. Everything and anything, to be honest with you. Like tonight, like meeting Natalie, I'd probably love to do a piece on her now, and I'm supposed to do it a couple of weeks ago for the Sunday in Dublin, but it fell through. So do something like that. Travel, I find travel's a really good source of inspiration. New shops, where have I been recently? Croatia, some little boutiques there, taking pictures. yeah, I don't know, are you the same? You'd be travel as well. Would you kind of meet new people, events like this, out and about? Yeah, it could really be anything. But I suppose what you always have to be aware of is it has to interest people. It has to interest beyond yourself, you know, that kind of way. And yeah, while you want to keep, I think you want to keep things quite Irish, you also don't want it to be too Irish. So kind of a mix, you know, to appeal, because you want to have, certainly from a blog perspective, you want to have readers from beyond. So while you're happy to cover the Brian Thomas fashion show, you would try and put elements of it that would be, you know, describing Lanvin and stuff like that, that would give it an international element as well. Would you agree? What yours? You have a very successful blog.
Yeah, I kind of, thanks. It really depends. It kind of, you know, depends on my mood in a particular day. It depends. I mean, obviously, with the Independent every week, I'm answering people's questions. So that's very clear cut in the sense that someone emails me a question, I answer it, which is great. In terms of the blog and online, sometimes it'll be around something that has obviously happened. So big news, for example, H&M and Maison Margiela, you know, so that's something that I'm interested in. So if I'm interested in it 9 times out of 10, I know I connect with people, so I kind of hope that it's going to be something someone else is interested in.
Yeah.
So I really just try and write about things that I genuinely have an interest in myself, rather than trying to create something in the hope that other people will like it. Because I kind of find that, you know, and then you bring much more to the piece as well. That's.
I think.
Do you find like pressure to be positive about it all the time? As in, if you were, like, let's say if you were sent to a designer show or you were sent to review something, do you feel like, unless you were interested in yourself, would you feel pressure to actually be positive about it?
Do I feel pressure to be positive about it? No.
No. Good.
No, I don't feel any pressure to be positive about it.
It's very easy to feel it, but you
I think
can't
it's
let
important.
yourself.
It's important that you don't,
Yeah.
because then you're not being honest. But there are ways of handling that, you know. So if you've been invited somewhere, but you feel it's appalling, and rather than actually writing something negative about it, just don't write about it at all.
Exactly, I agree.
You know,
totally,
so I mean, it's like anything. It's kind of like, you know, sometimes you meet someone and they're wearing something that you really don't like, and they ask, you know, and they don't ask you, you don't have to offer it up. So it's a little bit like that, you know. It's diplomacy to a certain level, isn't it?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
And yet there's some people who just go for it.
And you could have someone on an off day, and I'd be very loath to write a hatchet job like Darren. I'd rather write nothing at all.
But it's a reflection of your personality, you know, and I mean, you're not a negative person, so
No.
why would you just be negative for the sake of it?
Exactly.
I mean, I always question reviews. I think sometimes they have to write something negative.
Oh yeah, because
that was brilliant.
Because they've done 4 positive ones, and I suddenly think,
They have
oh,
to be
people
negative
think all I write is fluffy, positive stuff. So, yeah.
Question?
As a blogger, how do you get people to follow you on networks? Like, how do you get to connect with people?
Well, I think that's probably an interesting question for you, Natalie, because you're going to be blogging very soon.
Yeah.
You're now connected. There's no
How are you gonna
excuses
do
we're gonna be
it?
waiting. I mean, how do you get people to? How are you going to get followers?
The same as I suppose you do on Twitter or Facebook. It's just being prolific with your work and putting it out there. And I suppose it'll all link up.
Sure.
The website with the blog, with Twitter. So
Also, there's a blog role. Have you set up your own blog yet? There's a blog role, so I would contact the likes of Darren, the likes of myself, the likes of Butte.ie or any of the big Irish, and ask them to put you on their blog role. Like, I got a message randomly off RT.ie. They've just set up a new fashion site, wondering, like, no payment or anything like that, did I want to be included on their blog role? So people are only delighted, aren't they, to add you. Angela Scanlon as well. Just contact everyone and just ask them very nicely, have a look at my blog. If you'd like it, would you mind adding me on your own blog role?
It's a virtuous circle.
Yeah,
Hopefully.
we're all out to help one another at the
One
end
last
of the day.
question, because we're nearly towards the end, and this is to both of you. If there's anything you could change from your past in relation to business and jobs, would you?
Gosh, probably in college when people were saying, why are you interested in fluffy fashion? Why don't you want to, you know, go out to Afghanistan and report about the war? I would have told them to, you know what.
So you wish you didn't, or you wish you did?
I wish I did.
All right, okay, that's interesting.
Yeah,
but you're
I
happy
really
with
wish
all
I
the steps
did.
you've taken so far today?
Pretty much, yeah. I think it's been progressive, and I think, yeah, no, I'm pretty content. I
How
have to
about
say.
you, Natalie?
I've made loads of mistakes, but I don't regret them really because I learned from them. Nothing was too drastic, you know, but sleep, I'd get more sleep.
And on that note, I think that's brilliant advice. Do you know what? In order to succeed, you have to make mistakes. I think
True.
that's, you know,
Absolutely,
so
yeah.
go forth and start those businesses and stay in Ireland and sell online. It'll be amazing. Thank you so much to our lovely audience here. To those of you who watched via live web stream, thank you very much. Tomorrow night we have the editors, so Constance Harris from the Sunday Independent
Great.
and Melanie Morris
Well worth coming for.
from Image Magazine.
Both
So
well
that's going to
worth
be
coming
really
too.
interesting
Yeah.
chat. Thursday we have styling with Karina Gaffney and Angela Scanlon, and of course Friday we have our big fashion show. So we have 4 young budding stylists who are getting the chance to style their own eBay.ie fashion show in Smock Alley Theatre. I'm very excited about that and about the rest of our guests. Thank you very much. A round of applause.